and I think she wants to say something to us about the situation there. But just know that we are concerned that several people were almost in tears at the idea that there were citizens that had fallen through the cracks on this, and that we had not sufficiently provided for the well-being of a large group of our constituents. We had people who come from out of town and evacuees from Florida, from South Carolina, from all over, and we provided for those folks and did it in an admirable way by pulling together all kinds of services, and we did it with an open heart, as Macon does. But for folks who are our own residents, that's not been done, and so I'm glad that my fellow colleagues and I are here today, and we want to pull this thing together, and whatever we can do to make up for the injustice that's been done that's to these folks, and we want to do that. So thank you so very much from the bottom of our hearts for breaking your busy schedule and coming here to your government center to take care of this emergency. This is a true emergency. So thank you for letting me be long-winded.
You're fine.
You always long-winded.
Commissioner Allen.
Hush, Joe.
And I do also appreciate y'all coming today. This, like I said, local government sometimes, 90% of the time, don't get involved in something that's private. This time, this don't just hit one family. Red Cross could go if it had been a fire, going to flood. You have Salvation Army can take them. This hit a whole community. Crystal Lake, I lived close to it one time, years ago. And I know how many families are in there. I have two questions that I would like to be asked, if hopefully our chairman will be able to help us with. There's one, I see our school board president here. Later, I'd like for him to tell us where our children are going to school. There's plenty of kids over there. How do we get them to school now? Or is it depending on us? Is it depending on our bus system? How are we able to get them to our schools? Secondly, if the federal government is involved in giving monies to the people that own these properties, how or what kind of role are they playing in this? I don't see anybody from the federal government here or the state. So are they playing a role in this? This is two things I'd like to know. And so I'm just putting that on the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was long.
Any other yes.
Just briefly, as a county, as a community, we are family. And family takes care of family. This is an emergency situation. It's not a tornado. It's not a hurricane. It's not the Ocmulgee flooding. It's banks. But it is an emergency, and normally in those situations, our EMA department would be out. Red Cross would be out serving those needs. This is a different kind of an emergency, and one we really may have never confronted, but we are family, and family takes care of family.
That was brief. Very good. Okay, mine will be too. Thank you for coming this morning for the people that may be able to provide some help. The whole city, the whole community is concerned about this. We just have to be very careful that what we do as city officials, your government here, is that we don't overstep our bounds or do things that we aren't supposed to do. We can bring together the groups that are here today to help you with trying to resolve this problem. I'm really angry at the property owner. It's private property. I'm really angry. If any of the property is Section 8 and HUD should be involved, they should be here to address this, because this is a bad thing. But we need to be careful that if what we do here doesn't start going on and say if another apartment complex and we say this is not a natural disaster, and it's not, but it's a private disaster which should be taken care of. I think that we need to watch out that if we do have a disaster that's a natural disaster, that we don't start taking care of everybody that's homeless or out of homes for various reasons, because that's not the government's role to find housing, but we can find help, and that's what we want to do for our citizens here. And we just need to be careful that we don't cross the line in what we do and what we can do and what we should do. But thank you for the groups that are here today, and for the one resident that's here. We hope to hear from her later too. That situation out there, I just got to say, this makes me mad again, because there were a lot of things going on out there that even before the water was shut off, a lot of bad things. And the residents didn't deserve to live in those bad conditions. The management, the owners should have been taken responsibility. They should be taken to court, in my mind, to get some resolution done to this. And it's definitely now, I think there should be some court action done to make him pay for what he's done to the residents there.
Thank you. And we had Commissioner Tillman just join us. Like I said, we're just getting started. If you want to say a few words before, and I see Dr. Moffitt just stepped out of the room, but if you want to say a few words before we get a status update from him.
First of all, I appreciate everyone for coming this morning. For those that may not know, maybe about a couple of weeks ago, when I actually just started seeing news reports, one of the first things I did was call our county attorney and ask for an ordinance or a resolution of how we can penalize this property owner. And for whatever reason, that hadn't been done. Nothing's been written. Nothing's been suggested how to write anything. And he did suggest that Atlanta, I don't know if it was a Techwood property or somewhere up in Atlanta, where the city council members did ask or had the water turned back on, and then gave residents at least 30 days. We did not put out that information because we wanted to, thought he would do the research and discover how we could do it and the way we could do it. And so even to this date, we don't have anything as a suggestion, and it's been now 2 weeks. To further just update you all, is I represent the district, and on February the 8th, I got a call at 3:45 and said, meet us at Crystal Lake at 4:30, and that all departments, EMA, Red Cross, the mayor, everybody's gonna be there. And we were gonna hold a press conference basically telling people that, you know, it's unsafe and you need to vacate. And I called Commissioner Watkins, and I was assuming that they'd call others, and he says, I'm on the way. And he's the only one I call, just, you know, for whatever reason, I don't know why I just called him. But he just said, I'm on the way, and I was assuming that all commissioners had received the same information. And lo and behold, when we got on the property, all those agencies that I was told was gonna be there was not there. It was just Commissioner Watkins, myself, our county manager and PR person. And that press conference was not held until 6:30. And so it was a lot of things that was said was gonna happen that didn't happen, that the public is not even aware of. You're probably hearing for the first time. Basically, you know, I got a call as a commissioner at 3:45 saying, let's be here at 4:30 and we're gonna tell everybody to vacate. The question that I would have is, all of you who are service providers was not called in advance to say, let's have a meeting first, or to even meet us out there. And so that's the update that we was asking in executive session. You know, where's that update? And so it's always just interesting after, you know, how do you avoid it going forward? And so that's what I would just say and share, and to just be honest and say, it's none of our fault initially. This relies on the property owner. But what happens is you tend to go back and start questioning, okay, well, why had it been happening for 2 years? You know, why hadn't the fire prevention folks shut it down prior to now? Why hadn't inspection and fees took it serious and shut it down before now? Why hadn't the judge shut it down before now? You know, and so when it's like all heck breaks loose, then here we are. And so my thing is just how do we avoid it going forward, and what plan do we put in place? Because we went to Baltimore and put the EMA plan in place of natural disasters and so forth. So now we need a true plan of if this ever happens again in any property with at least whatever the minimum number of folks that live in the area, what is our plan and course of action and resources? So that's what I'll just say it like that.
Thank you. Thank you. And for Dr. Moffitt, for clarity's sake, so we're all speaking on the same voice, I'm curious as to what is the current status between the apartment complex and the county. I know that we've sent inspectors there on various occasions, and I've heard that we have a court date upcoming on March 1st, but just so I'm completely clear and we all speaking on one accord with it. Yeah, either way, whichever one you're more comfortable.
You are correct. What we have done is,
Let's turn
I don't think that mic's on. Yeah.
yes, sir, you are correct. We have done a comprehensive inspection with our code enforcement and our fire department. As of today, the initial complaints from the water and electrical that were on that, 2 weeks ago, that Friday, and they were going to fix the 20 units and the switch in the basement. That work has still not been completed.
Is it still ongoing, or?
It is still ongoing. I spoke to the inspector on yesterday, and once the work was completed, the apartment complex was going to call the inspector to come over to do a final inspection of just that work, but that work has not been completed. Our main concern was that we identified work to be done outside of those 20 units, and as far as we know, there's not been a work order, or the complex has not assigned anyone to do that work or to address those issues. So when we decided to go ahead and do a complete inspection of the property and give them a punch list of things to be done, and that work is, I do not know the plan that the complex has to accomplish that. But as of today, there is no power or water, or no power to the high-rise and the mid-rise building. We are waiting for them to call us so we can inspect the initial 20 units that they identified, but we have identified more work to be done from the fire side and the electrical side. We also had our code enforcement go out and inspect all of the units in the complex, and they have done that, and in some fashion or form, if a unit had not already had citations, new citations were issued on a number of units. There is a pending court date of March 1st for some of the initial citations are already in the system. And please be reminded that the part of the process with code enforcement is once you issue a citation, they have 30 or 45 days, depending on what the citation is, to address that issue. And then you go back out and re-inspect it. If it is not completed, then you're issued a court date. So these new citations, the property owner will be given at least 30 days to make those repairs. But there are pending issues that already had a court date that will be in court on March 1st.
How serious are those March 1st issues, and in level of severity, are they enough for condemnation? And could you explain, or maybe, I know we got the county attorney here, how condemnation works and what it would be?
I do not know the exact items that have been cited or the severity of those items. I can look at those, but again, that's in the court system and it's an open case. So therefore, I don't know exactly what the level of punitive charges can be brought against the property owner for those cases.
Commissioner Watkins, can I ask something too?
Yes,
I
yes.
don't know if Keith, if you know this, but You know, the initial problem was something to do with the electrical because of a water leak. I'm just thinking if it were in any business building downtown, that problem would be resolved by now because you wouldn't keep a business closed for 2 or 3 weeks. So what's the problem? Do we know? And who's working on it?
The property owner has a private contractor working on it.
What was it that couldn't be fixed in a couple of days?
So that's where it started. When we were on the
Yeah.
property
Yeah.
that Friday, they said definitely by Saturday, and it was just supposed to be a one-day fix. So
Yeah.
Well, our people said that night that due to the conditions of the equipment, that you just couldn't go in and put a Band-Aid on some of these items. So some of them had to be completely rewired, circuit breakers and things like that. And that our people that night, for those that were there, they told us that this was not a overnight fix, that it would take a couple of weeks. And it is showing that it's taking a couple of weeks just to do those initial 20 units. And there are several other units that need work also. But the property owner would be addressing this issue, and I have no authority to tell the property owner how to fix his problems. All I know is that he
Right.
contracted with this outside contractor, and they're working on those
Have
units.
we actually been in touch with the property owner? Has contact been made with them? I know they're LLC, but
About what, two weeks ago? Maybe about, not within the last week, no ma'am.
and I realize this is between private property and we can't control that, but you know, it just seems like he should have been, or someone from the LLC should have been here to speak to us on this. Speak to the residents, if nothing else.
And my contact has only been with their attorney. They have an
Okay.
attorney in Atlanta, so my contact was with him about a week and a half ago.
Tell him to get his butt over here.
Hmm.
follow up.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Moffitt, are you familiar that HUD is involved with this property due to federal monies being spent on the property?
I'm familiar that the Housing Authority has about 6 units there, but none of those units are in the high rise. And that I believe due to some new information that came out in the last couple of days that the Housing Authority is making preparations to relocate those 6 tenants within the next few days.
It was also said that the water authority they'd had the water cut back on, and it's going to be cut back off again. And I know Commissioner Bibbins is here, who represents us on the water authority, and he probably will speak to this in a little bit. But in these type conditions, unless that water is a damage to the initial structure, those other structures around it, why would that water be cut off? I think they're on different.
I have only been told through secondhand that the water authority has notified tenants that they are be cutting the water off again for, I assume, non-payment. I've only been told that. I've not received any official information leading up to that. But if they do cut water off to the complex, we will view that as a public safety issue because water to that complex does affect fire suppression in that area right there. So if they do cut water off to that complex, which is what alerted us to this to begin with, is when they cut water off, we knew we had some public safety concerns.
Mhm.
But again, I have not had any official correspondence with the water authority to know the reason why. My understanding, and Mr. Austin is here from the housing authority, that he was notified by the water authority, which is why they're making preparations to move their tenants to other locations.
Okay.
I think we need to make note here too that the water bill is the responsibility of the property owner.
Correct.
That is included in the rent, and this is market rate rent that the majority of the residents pay, and you know, who cares what? Yeah, but the tenants have met their obligation, and it's the property owner who has incurred these bills, and it's the property owner's responsibility. I've heard 1 or 2 people try and say, well, folks should have paid their water bill, you know, and after I sucked it up and tried not to get mad, then, you know, you try to explain that is not the way that this thing works, that it was the responsibility of the property owner to pay, and property owners have not paid, and that is why the residents are being inconvenienced and effectively evicted from their residences.
You are 1,000% correct, and I will add that not just the water bill, but the repairs and maintenance of the facility, I would say is completely the responsibility of the property owner.
So, and I want to, and Mr. Drake, if you could chime in on this as well. We use the word eviction in this term for the tenants, but I want to be clear on what is the actual legal status, if as much as we can. What is the legal status of the tenants affected by this as they go in to receive services and apply to other places? They don't have an official judge-rendered eviction notice, and that's kind of causing some confusion in the community. So how best can we clarify that gray area?
Well, Macon-Bibb County is working with the Economic Opportunity Council to determine. We're viewing this as it is difficult for us to determine.
Try harder with the mic.
It is difficult for us to determine the exact legal status of the residents as vis-a-vis their rental status, because we're not privy to their rental agreements with the landlord, and we also don't know the status of the individuals with respect to whether or not they were current on their rent, which would affect their status. However, we're approaching this after giving it some consideration and talking with Ms. Jackson, who is the chair of Economic and Community Development, as a housing crisis or homelessness situation, which would allow these individuals to be able to access funds from Emergency Solution Grant Program, which our Economic Opportunity Council here administers. And we believe that this program would provide an avenue to help these individuals who have been displaced as a result of this housing crisis. And I will say that in talking to Ms. Jackson, I'd like her to come to when I complete mine and talk to you about the program and what it will require, that it may require the appropriation of some additional funds by the commission to the EOC to be able to provide this rapid housing reentry funding. So that is, I think, the best way for us to approach the situation, so that we can not run afoul of the gratuities clause. They have to be a program. We can't just give money out to residents, but they can, if they qualify and can access funds through a program that we have under the law, then that is the best way for us to proceed. And Ms. Jackson can provide more information about this program and how her department feels it can be utilized to help these individuals.
Wonderful, wonderful. Solutions oriented. Questions for?
I got a question for Judd.
Yes, sir.
I was at breakfast this morning and was told that Romney Tucker has taken a family in and has rented them a place to live. Now, will this fall back on those individuals that have rented a place? Will they be subsidized back from what you just talked about? I mean, how would that work? Because people are not. I mean, they can't walk the streets. I mean, we got to have a place for our kids, and then the parents of those children. I mean, where do you go from there?
Well, let me say, Ms. Jackson she works with this program every day and understands the regulatory details much better than I, so I'd rather her speak to exactly that issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then EOC too.
Good morning.
The information that is actually being passed out to you just gives a breakdown to talk a little bit about emergency solutions grants. Very good question that you had with regards to that. With these funds that we actually receive as far as emergency solutions grant, we brought them before you all as far as commission before. during our appropriation time as far as our budget. The way that it works is that we have two different categories, and with these funds that you must actually be homeless. These are funds that are provided through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and we do have those agencies that help us as far as these funds are concerned. What you have there is just a little bit of information as far as the purpose of the funds. It talks a little bit about where these funds come from. Again, these are from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. This program is administered through our Economic and Community Development Department. We go through the application process. Right now, we have two agencies that actually receive funds that do the homeless prevention side. We have one agency that Mr. Drake referred to, which is Macon-Bibb EOC. I'm sorry, y'all can't hear me? I'm sorry.
A little bit better.
Thank you. Okay. So with the other funds that we have, as far as the homeless prevention funds, those are the funds that that help as far as those individuals that are considered to be truly homeless. There is a definition that we must follow as far as the federal government. How Salvation Army comes into play is that for these particular funds is that you must have a coordinated entry. With coordinated entry, the Salvation Army is the point of contact where individuals will go in, actually be assessed, and determine what are the services that will be needed as far as that individual, and then refer them to those services. So what you have here is really just the main information as far as rapid rehousing, and it talks about the relocation to a standardized location. What happens is that we are looking at homeless individuals are those individuals that literally do not have a fixed location as far as a residence and a meaning. We do have Macon-Bibb EOC that's here again to actually talk a little bit about what their program is. What we have there too on the back is just a little bit of information that talks about area median income. As far as how people qualify, as far as the programs that we provide, but also the information as far as the homeless status and how that process actually works. The coordinated entry information is on the bottom, which talks about the Salvation piece, the Salvation Army piece, and that they are the lead agency. It also has the telephone number if someone that may not be able to get to the facility needs to set up a time as far as going to the facility. Now, with this particular resource, that it's not just about housing, that they also help as far as providing access to other types of services that may be needed as far as from that holistic approach with regards to housing. Now, I know that on the agenda, and I'm not sure if they're next on the agenda or if you want to wait to their time as far as asking some information as far as the Economic Opportunity Council and the Salvation Army. Did you have any questions about what we've passed out? I'm so sorry.
So just to start off,
Yes.
wonderful. So I'm understanding that we have an established program in place, so it's not a situation where we need to create new guidelines or policies to address this issue. We have established programs in place.
Yes,
that-
we actually
okay.
do, and we have a resolution that is in the process right now as far as coming before you to actually put additional funds into the rapid rehousing piece.
Great.
Now, of
great.
course, we know we need more funds, but that's what we have currently available as far as trying to put some additional funds toward that particular piece.
And I'm sure others have questions, but that's a perfect segue because next on our agenda is I'm curious about. I know we have 47 families that are either in short-term housing or were dislocated at some point in the situation. So I'm asking for a census or a status update on what we know right now of those families. But if there are any other questions, yes. Just hit the button. No, it's always on. Just hit the button again.
Would be, and my only question would be, unless you've just been out of the state or the country, this process started on February the 8th. We've had the Salvation Army a week ago with us, and so my question to just you that's bringing this information now, were you just instructed to give this and share this information, or I mean, everybody saw what was happening back on February the 8th. I mean, you didn't tell us that what was available then. I'm just wondering, like, why? You know, I'm just
Yes,
saying that
sir.
since February the 8th, we're getting this information to say we have something available. We just did the research. You were just asked to do the research. I mean, that's the question, because it's folks that's been for the last couple of weeks been trying to find resources and doing stuff. And I'm just saying, if we have something available, so nobody saw it, you didn't see it, that what was happening, to say, okay, let me look before now, and that's all. And just not you. I'm just what was the information before now? That's all I'm asking. To let people know what was available.
No, sir. Actually, I'm sorry.
Well, but we have a leader of our city, county, and that leader should have put this thing in process. That's what should have happened. We all know that. And we can't blame the different entities, because when you have a natural disaster, you can see it. You know that's going on. You know you've got the storm damage, whatever that is. You see the rain and all of that. But we're doing this because we realize that there has not been that designation of this from our leader, that this is an emergency. And what we are doing by our action today is saying this is an emergency. We recognize that it is an emergency. And since the mayor serves as a commissioner, it's the mayor, but it's also a commissioner, then you see your leadership saying, now, a little late, yes, a lot late for the folks who've been impacted by this. But we are now saying this is an emergency.
So-
And going forward, we need to do everything we can as quickly as we can to impact these folks who are disadvantaged.
So for the sake of productivity, I understand that blame was just hurled and everybody wants to respond. Mr. Carlton has been on the scene. Salvation Army, Miss Naomi, Mr. Williams, excuse me, has been on the scene. Miss Naomi's been on the scene from the Salvation Army. We've had issues and problems, but from the first meeting, from day one, day two, they've been actively trying to do their best. So this is a stressful situation for the entire community, but we are here now and we're trying to come up with solutions. So I would ask that we temper our thoughts and our concerns towards not the past, but what can we do going forward. But yes, sir.
Well, even going forward is the amount of information that's being passed or being presented today is that we still don't have a clear indication of what the status of the residents are. So for us to even present solutions from the county standpoint, as we said earlier, this is a private matter between the property owner and the tenant. Right now, some still have leases. The property owner did pass eviction. What's the term he used, Judd? What type of eviction was it? Constructive eviction? Or to that effect of.
Wait a minute, I didn't actually get an answer.
But even that type of eviction still leaves them in some type of limbo status, even the agencies and how they help them.
But and I know that was an initial confusion, particularly in the first 2 or 3 days, because all of us were expecting by the weekend or by Monday that everyone would return to their homes and everything would be normal. As this program situation has devolved, I'm understanding that is definitely opening up more resources to folks. I'm understanding correctly that from the Department of Economic and Community Development and the Economic Opportunity Council, that residents from Crystal Lake would be eligible, at least on the grounds of that you are in a short-term or temporary housing situation. The income requirements and other requirements are yet to be determined, but that first part of the checklist, we all agree is
No.
no. Okay, I'm sorry.
you would have to qualify the tenants, and I believe first step
So, and
is-
I'm asking though, I understand there may
Yeah.
be 15 different pieces of the
Correct.
checkoff list.
Correct.
But for the first checkoff list, that if I was a resident in the if I have an address in the mid-rise or high-rise building, that we agree that I am in a short-term or temporary housing situation, and I can continue the application process to prove my economic status, my employment status, my family and marital status, all weigh into this formula. But that first checkoff, we all agree that mid-rise and high-rise people should continue with the application. Is that not even certain?
I think that we would have to, and that's part of the thing that I wanted to have Mr. Williams actually speak to, is that
Come on down.
the information as far as the status, that yes, if you have a lease and you have the appropriate information, but we don't have that information to really know the
Well,
answer.
let me ask this and say that I think going forward, Mr. County Attorney and County Manager, the same disaster relief that happens in a hurricane or a storm, that residents, it don't matter what your income is, whether you're rich or poor, funds are available for you. Can we begin to implement and put this particular situation in that same category? Then the question becomes, it doesn't matter what people's incomes are. And that's all I'm saying. Going forward, can we create a same scenario of this is a disaster, such as a hurricane and so forth, so people can qualify for funds based on, it don't matter what the income
I
is?
have been advised by not just the county attorney, but even the outside agencies, the answer to that is no. That a natural disaster has a clear definition of what it is, and that this does not qualify as a natural disaster.
Okay, I can understand that. I don't like it, but I understand that, and that's if I sit down and read the policies governing your agency, that's what it's gonna say.
That's a federal law.
I can work with that. So, and I have a residence right here. So, what do you and help me ask this question. Help me ask this question if you can. If she shows up to your office, she lived in the mid-rise building, right? What they have is the letter from Robinson LLC explaining to them that they've been terminated. They're gonna bring that to your office and a proof of, I don't know, your driver's license that says I live in Crystal Lake, and this is my letter from management saying that my lease has been terminated. Is that acceptable to continue on with the process?
To be honest, no. I put this question before our funding source. They were in town on Friday. I showed them the actual letter, and because it is a generic letter, it does not have a tenant's name or address on it. She pointed out that it would also need to have a time limit on there. So none of that was present on that particular letter, so they would not accept it. But she did give me the solution to the problem.
Okay.
And I am working on that. All I need is something showing that they were evacuated. Whatever department evacuated them from the building need to provide us with a letter, and then they're fine.
So you said needs to, so to date, we
have the letter.
Okay.
Chief Riggins emailed it to me this morning. I've given it to Miss Wanzina, and so we have that letter in hand. And
That letter, okay.
so we're,
We can proceed.
hold on one second. All right, this is Department, his name is Economic Community Development? Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, come on up.
Miss Kitchens, come up.
Just sound like you just received it.
Good. That's a retired teacher.
Definitely should have had a bigger table.
That's okay.
First of all, good morning.
Good morning.
I lived in Crystal Lake for approximately 8 years. And you probably gonna have to ring a bell or something for me to stop talking, because I can talk on and on about Crystal Lake. As of January 2018 to January 2019, which was last month, we've had 19 property managers.
19 what?
Property managers. And each time one would come in, you know, they would send us a letter saying, we're gonna do this better and things are gonna get better and we're looking forward to working with you. And most of those letters I kept. Every time a new property manager would come in, they would say, we don't have a lease, when did you sign a lease? I said, I signed a lease the first of the year. No, well, I don't see it. Then another will come and say, oh, well, I found one 6 months ago where she signed it. You know, they were being done away with for whatever reason, you know. This one said, well, I don't find hers, or I don't find this one, and it just was going back and forth. It was quite confusing, and I could tell that something was crooked going on about it. And you put in work orders out there for the maintenance department. They would say, well, we came in and we did it, because I would go back to the office. There was no proof. So I suggested, by me having been there so long, what you used to do, if you all don't mind, have a work order. And once you've been in the apartment, then you sign it saying that I've been here. And then you have proof that you would have done what you were supposed to have done. That was never done. Okay, so I said, well, what happened to the suggestion that I made? Well, we really don't have a key to your apartment. You don't have a key to my apartment. No, ma'am, we don't have a key to your apartment. I said, well, I've given you 4 keys were made, and then I went to Lowe's and made 4. So that we have 8 keys to my apartment out there somewhere. 2 maintenance men were fired, so I was told by one of the property managers, thinking that he had gone into apartments. This is what I was told, and he had taken things from the apartments. So my son suggested, well, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go and make another key, because it's too many keys out there, and I don't want all those keys out there where my mother's living. We made another key. Took the key to the rent office. About 2 weeks later, when it was time for rent to be paid, Miss Kitchens, we need to have a key to your apartment. I said, excuse me? We don't have a key to your apartment. So Asia, she told me, she said, Miss Kitchen, just go on and we'll make a key right here in the office, so you don't have to go in the Lowe's, and your son don't have to go. So we're just going to make a key in the apartment. In the office. We did that. Okay. The next 3 weeks, it would always be a time when it was just about time for the rent to be paid. That was a new property manager. And by me having taught school for 30 years, my brain something was just clicking, telling me something is not right. So I said, well, what happened to Gregory? Oh, I don't know, he's not here anymore. Not here anymore. No, he's not here anymore. I said, you don't know what happened? No, ma'am, they just sent me. So, okay. And this just kept going on and on and on and on. Finally, when the guy came in named Cortez, I won't ever forget him, property manager. He said he was from Chicago somewhere. He said, Miss Kitchen, you are $2,000 behind in your rent. I said, excuse me? He said, yes, ma'am. I said, no, I'm not behind in my rent. So he said, well, can you show me your receipts? I said, sure I can. I went to my apartment, got all my receipts, brought them to him. Well, the last one he said that I owe. Now, if the rent is $800, how you let me get $2,000? How you know that's not reasonable. He said, well, I tell you what, you got the receipt because I had brought it back. He said, let me make a copy of it. By this time, I'm looking at them being so crooked, I'm not going to allow him to take my physical copy, original, into his hands. So I said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to the post office on Rocky Creek. I'm going to have you a copy made, and I'll be back. Well, you can just let me hold this until you. No. You won't hold it because it seemed like they were just doing so many crooked things. You could put your hand on it, but they was being so slick until you really had to just make sure that you knew how to hold your stuff together. Okay. I brought it back to him. He said, oh, okay. I see. You don't owe this. But look right here, Miss Kitchens. I see you have your receipt. But look right here. Pull me around the computer. But it's not showing up in the home office. I said, sir, I'm sorry, Cortez, it's not showing up in the home office. But you have a physical receipt. But I'm just going by. I said, okay, I'll tell you what. I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to go and get my lawyer. I love her. He said, you going to get a lawyer? Sure. So I went on Vineville to Bo, was that Donner, Donner?
Yeah, Bo Donner.
Okay. We went to court with, I don't recognize this guy here. I don't know if he's proper for Crystal Lake lawyer or not.
No, you represent Macon-Bibb County.
Okay. But anyway, when I went to court, the little door that you come to, my lawyer and Crystal Lake's lawyer was sitting to the table. So my lawyer said, come on, Miss Kitchen. So I came around. He said, this is Mr. So-and-so. We shook hands. He says, we've gone over this. Crystal Lake's lawyer says, Miss Kitchens, I'm so sorry. He said, we've had many problems at Crystal Lake. He said, I apologize for you having to have gone through what you've gone through. He said, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. No court calls. You won't have to pay any court fees, anything. And we're just going to ask you to just forgive us this time. And hopefully this won't happen again.
Wow.
Ms. Kitchens.
So I want to that's a very interesting story, and I could listen to you tell stories all day. But I want to ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
Today, so 8 days, you were still a resident in Crystal Lake when the water and the power got shut off.
Oh yeah, let's get to that. Okay. Yeah.
And so nearly 12, almost 14 days have passed since then. Where have you been staying? How's that going?
Okay. The first time they put the water thing saying it wasn't going to be shut off, I didn't pay any attention, but I felt like I might need it one day, so I put it up under my sofa. The little red, was on the door. And I asked one of the water authorities, he was out there on the elevator. I said, what's going on? He said, well, we just want all to know that your water might be shut off because the bill has not been paid. He said, we know you're not responsible for it. Okay. I said, okay. So at that time, the elevator was working. We've had 2 elevators out there. I've been there 8 years. We probably had one working probably for 2 or 3 months on a consistent basis. For the last 4 months, we have not had one. I was used to stay on the 6th floor. Then I had to have a total knee replacement. So I got moved to 2E. We have people out there that's in wheelchairs and can't come down from the 7th floor, so they have to slide on the dirty pavement to come down all those stairs to come outside. We have a white man in a wheelchair out there. Then we had another man out there was in his 80s. He was on the 9th floor, if I'm not mistaken. He had to come all the way from the 9th floor to the lobby. He died last week. So, you know, I just wish people could have seen what was going on. Now, get back to the question you asked me, because I'm trying to, what did you ask? What was the last thing?
So how have you been? Where were you? Have you found new housing? Are you in a hotel? You staying with family? How's that going so far?
Okay, that Tuesday when they cut the water off, I saw it because I was out. I saw it on the news. I went to Family Dollar, bought me $40 worth of water. The next morning, my son bought me $20 worth of water. I got those receipts also. But my point is, had I known they were going to cut the water back on for every other day, then I would not have bought the water. Okay, I called to the water authority, me being who I am, and I asked what was the problem with the water, how much did it take? And so the person told me, he said, what's your name? I gave him my name. He said, well, I'm going to have my supervisor call you back. I'm in Econo Lodge that morning about 8:30 on Harrison Road. My phone rang. He said, is this Miss Kitchens? I said, sure. He said, well, this is whatever his name. The water bill is $41,000 and plus some. He said, that's why you all's water got cut off. He said, by the way, are you the property manager? I said, no, I'm not. He said, I'm so sorry because I wasn't supposed to give you that information.
So where are you now?
I'm staying with one of my sisters. I have 2 sisters. So fortunately, I was able to do that. But the night when they said evacuate, I didn't hear when they said move down to the gate and then you could go to some motel, because I didn't hear that. I had to pay money out of my pocket to stay for 2 nights. I stayed Wednesday night and Thursday night because they had said my son had gone up there that Thursday night. They said by Friday morning they thought they'd have everything worked out. The crew was gonna work all night, and you know, no later than Saturday we'll be back in the building and that sort of thing.
So when did you start looking? Have you started looking for housing yet or anything like that?
Yeah, I started on yesterday.
You just started yesterday, which I mean, even that, because you really just got information that you need. When did it hit you that was something you were gonna need to do?
Well, I like my own privacy, so I knew I could stay with my sister, you know, until I wanted to move.
Okay.
But I like my own place.
Okay.
And I was asking Gwen, the president of the NAACP, on Sunday when we had the dinner at the church, at one of the churches, could I get my money back? Because some people had been, you know, paid. I can't think of the word I'm trying to say. But anyway, they had been paid for their staying for those 2 nights. I paid my money. She said she'll talk to me about it later, but she wasn't sure I could get my money back.
All right. I
I have
understand.
a question here.
Yes, sir.
Number one is that, did you notify after you saw there was probably some fraudulent activity taking place?
Because I saw what now?
Fraudulent activity possibly taking place. Did anyone out there contact the district attorney's office at all?
No, that's what we're gonna recommend.
Wait, you said that we saw.
I asked you, did anyone possibly, I'm just asking a question, if they notified the DA's office, the district attorney, from fraudulent activity, from the funding of the monies that y'all have paid in? It's just a question I'm asking. Do you know of anybody that called them?
No,
And I have a
I
second
would have
part to
no way
that.
of knowing that unless a
Well-
tenant would have done it, and that would have probably been me. But as far as the office, you know, I don't know what they were doing. Matter of fact, they knew what they were doing themselves.
The second part of the question is for economic community development. Is every one of our families that are out there, have they been placed somewhere, or do we have families on the street?
And that's not for you. That's gonna be our next phase of just getting a census report on what we're taking care
They
of.
are on the street.
Wow.
They are in Salvation Army. I
With
do have-
children?
Yeah,
Thank
there
you.
are some. There was one lady out there, and I felt so sorry for her because the first night I stayed at Econo Lodge, she was there. She had 7 children, and I think the oldest one might be 7. So she said she was not from Macon, and she didn't have any other money to go for the second night. I felt very badly about that. But you know, the thing about it was, looked like you could pay somewhere. I thought maybe the mayor would say, hey, put them up somewhere, sponsor them a dinner or something. You know, I don't know what he did for those people that, or whoever let those people stay for 2 nights. But I was not a part of it. They said had I stayed to the gate, they were telling people to go right around there, and then somebody would tell you what motel to go to. But my son was just anxious for me just to get out from out there because they were saying you need to evacuate as soon as possible. So then that's what we did.
Thank you, ma'am.
But I wish, you know, and then another thing I want you all to know too.
Give me one more close, and then we're gonna move to.
Okay, I'm gonna move on.
Yes, ma'am.
But especially, I noticed for 3 years on the elevator, the one that was working, that inspection notice stayed the same. 2016. It was, you know, and this, here we talking about 18. Here we talking about 17. You still up there? You know, so
Okay.
this, whoever was coming doing the inspection seemed like they were being made a deal.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much for that perspective. Yes, please.
I apologize. I'm supposed to be in Dublin at 12 o'clock, so I don't want to speed, but just want to, since Mr. Allen asked the question, I wasn't prepared to talk today. But first of all, just let me say publicly that I really do appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Al Tillman and Commissioner Virgil Watkins for taking the lead on this. I know there's others in the rooms. I know Marshall Talley and Ms. Davis and also Dominic Johnson. We do appreciate your work, and I appreciate y'all getting out in front and doing this and helping the folk out. On behalf of the school system, I do want to say that the Family Engagement Title I teams were on site immediately as well. Each of those families, we have 34 kids. We have 34 children that were at Crystal Lake that were displaced. We know where each and every one of those children are. They do have temporary housing, and our transportation department has made arrangements to make sure that each and every one of those children are able to go to their schools.
Yeah, and I just echo that. I believe it's Superintendent Lori Rogers, Deputy Superintendent.
Yes.
She was on that scene the first night. The school board was on the scene. If we were there at 4:30, school board was there 5:30, 6 o'clock. Soon as they got word, ensuring that those families, that was the priority then, and great job responding.
Yeah, I just want to answer quick, but I also want to say just something really quick before I get out. I think I don't think we need to be pointing fingers at anybody right now. That's not what important. We got plenty of time. I do know that the district attorney has been called. I've had people call them myself. This is clearly a theft by deception or a theft by conversion case. I would expect for someone to get charged eventually. I don't care where they're at in the United States. So I think people will get their due process. As you know, it takes a while to go to court, and there's going to be proceedings, against the owners that own the property, both civilly and criminally. But that's not what's important now. What's important is making sure that we capture all those folks out there and take care of their most immediate needs, which is food, shelter, and housing. School system will do our part. I know the county is going to do their part. I trust that. And I'm sure y'all working on plans that make sure this doesn't happen again, even though it's a private entity. So thank you for that time today. Feel free to call me if there's any other questions, but I think that's all that you asked me for. I just need to get on the road. Also, I want to thank, I know Ms. June O'Neill and her group has to get out of here. They have their own meeting today. They were very instrumental and as a cooperating unit with the Bibb County School System to make sure those children had food, clothing, and shelter as well. So I know they needed to depart today too, so that's why I wanted to speak with you.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
sir. So I wanted to move on to, I'm very curious and concerned, what has been our intake so far? I know from the media that there are 47 families affected. So just raise your hand. Who've been the main intake organs? I know we have the coordinated. Yes, ma'am. So please.
Basically, we have had people calling us. We've been giving them the phone number to get the assessments done. We have currently housed 3 families already. 2 more are there.
So you're with the Salvation Army, correct? Could you come on up, please?
There's Naomi here. She can tell you a lot of stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey,
Hi, how you doing? Your name for the record? And
Naomi Ladson.
yes, ma'am. And so you were saying that so, and I'm understanding you're with the Salvation Army, and the coordinated point of entry would be the Salvation Army.
Correct.
And like I said, I know you guys have been engaged since day one. So just a little bit of background on where we are with that.
Okay. In our last meeting that we had, which I spoke at, we have housed 3 families currently, and 2 families have just come in. We do have several men coming in also, which we're working with. So, and it's working out very well because not only have we coordinated with EOC and all of the other agencies in the county, we've also got churches stepping up to the plate that want to help. For instance, we had the one family that came in that they had enough money to make ends meet, and they could do just fine. All they needed was somebody to help get them in. So we reached out, and individual from the community helped, and a church helped, and they were housed the same day they walked in that door.
So so what I'm most curious about is, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, closing cases. I would assume we started the situation with 47 open cases. Positive completion would be they've been relocated to permanent housing.
Correct.
So roughly, how are we halfway done? 5 people have found, or how much of that do we know?
I have no idea exactly how many people were involved in all of it to start with. I just know as they come to my door or they call me, we assist them as needed.
Okay. Do we have like that type of clearinghouse data set up, or where would that come from? How we? Okay, if one of us was in this room, we're going to be the person responsible for, that type of census of these 47 families. Where would? No one.
We wouldn't know, and they wouldn't know.
I guess I'm so.
There must not be.
So okay, so.
So that's what we need to set up.
Are there
and
any
that
left
is-
that need housing? Are there any left that need housing that you know of? That have approached you, are there any left that need housing? You said that 5 have been there, but that's all?
That's all.
That's it?
That
Out of
is
the-
all that has come in. That's all that's, well, as I said, we get calls,
Yeah.
and then we assist through calls also. But as far as the number of people that have actually come in and asked me for housing, it's only been 5.
Okay. Thank
So-
you for helping them.
You're
The
welcome.
nature of the calls, then, I guess, what's happening there? All right, so we can only account for 5. Like that. No.
The
Because
nature of the calls are this. Most of the calls that come through just want to know about food. They have a place to be. They're fine where they're at. They just don't have the food to support them while they're there. So we then turn around with other agencies along with us, and we support them with what they need where they are at. We ask them, do they want to get their own place? Some of them don't want to. They want to stay where they're at. So we just assist in whatever way we can. If they're interested in getting housing, then we ask them to go ahead and call for the 750-8689 number, which is the housing assessment line. And at that point in time, we can determine whether or not we can assist them through housing.
So, and that's what I'm understanding the 5 to mean, that 5 have
The
went through
5
the housing
actually,
assessment.
the 5 actually came into the shelter.
Okay, so who can provide? I guess I'm looking for the top number. Like there are 4. We started out with 47 families, and
We don't know that. I don't know that.
we just don't. Okay.
Well, I guess
Okay.
what we're looking for is an entity that everybody from Crystal Lake one place where people, because if you give all of these different numbers, that's just terrible, and that's not organized. But what would be an entity that's either already in place or, and I'm looking over there at the Regional Commission because they're great at planning and organizing a lot of different things. There are a lot of different services that are already available the folks at Crystal Lake just need to know how to access those services, and someone has to serve as the intake agency or entity for the people. And so I would just like to ask if we've got the regional commission represented here, if we could possibly have them to serve in that capacity. I know you've got a dribble of folks and some others have a dribble of people, but what we want to do is to make an impact and go ahead, because we're, what, 2 weeks into this? And our fear is there are already some people who've just said, you know, later for this, what in the world am I going to do? And we want to recapture those folks and at least get them on their feet. So could I suggest?
Well, let me ask this.
Have a regional commission to organize.
Call somebody.
We pay dues to the regional commission, and they can serve. They have a lot of different functions that they provide, and I'm just thinking that they could be an agency that's used to doing this kind of stuff, and maybe could put together a way for all of the residents to contact, and then also if there's an evaluation that needs to be done, they could do that too, and then channel the folks to the services, to the agencies that they need. People don't need to be running all over the place.
And I guess I've understood, if I'm understanding our scenario right, because I thought we went that you already had all your tools in place, that if there's an established coordinated point of entry that folks go to, that then at some point you would be eligible for emergent, because we're trying to pull down emergency solution program dollars, grant dollars, and it requires a coordinated point of entry. And I'm either understanding that we have multiple points of entry now. We don't have multiple points.
She's already the
This
multiple.
is it.
You are the multiple.
And I think the community knows the Salvation Army. That's a number they know. They can be familiar with.
So-
Regional Commission, I don't even know how to call them, but I can find it.
So I,
Most folks don't know.
where is
If
the?
they don't know, what's the?
So I guess the part that's throwing me off, that at this point only 5 families, maybe I'm not asking the right, only 5 families have accessed us at the coordinated point of entry.
Correct.
Now, part of that problem, I assume, was because we had barriers that they didn't have. If everyone, the first person that showed up with the form, and they were told that that's not valid. So
No, we haven't turned
No.
anyone away.
we haven't turned anyone away, but only 5 people.
Have showed up.
So that leaves an awful lot of other folks, and what I'm just saying is.
How do we cover that gap?
Media, get it out there in the media, let them know to give us a call. We discussed this at that original meeting. All they had to do was call us, and we gave them our number at that time.
So, and I'm understanding you to say that several people have called but have not completed the assessment, and that's what's making. So I'm assuming more than 5 people have called. 30 or so have called, or just 5 have even called.
Well, we've had 5 come in, we've had about 10 calls, that's about it. And
Okay.
that's not calls that are asking for housing. That's the 5 that came in asking for housing. The other 5 that I'm assuming are just asking for financial assistance or maybe food or clothes.
So let me ask. So,
And yes, we are helping in those areas.
okay. So there are 5 families that have received housing, and then there are 10 or so who've also received non-housing assistance. I'm thinking about that correct? Like you said, in terms of food services and
Non-housing assistance.
right.
yes.
So that you have a caseload of 15 based on that.
Right, and also, you know, if they need financial assistance, we could bring them in, and because of the situation that they're in, help them get into another place if they do not qualify underneath the coordinated entry side.
Commissioner Watkins, let me ask this, because she says she's the point of entrance, coordinated point of entrance. The Salvation Army is not necessarily you, but if that's what we put to the media, that's the point of entry, and if there's still, out of the 47 that were displaced, or more than that, if there's more than 5 that need housing, let's get them to call. Let's let the media put this out there. Call Salvation Army. She can help coordinate what you need. And if there's still those that need permanent housing, you can help coordinate that.
We can help do that also.
Okay.
We also stated that, the different assessment tools that we use, which is not just the coordinated entry. So one does not fit everybody. So it's a case by case.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Ms. Lucas that we've got to find one entity, because like we have in Macon-Bibb a PR firm or person, but when an attorney from Crystal Lake sends us information and the media has apparently put out his false information of only 7 residents are paid, you can't take that back. Mm-mm. And so, what we're hearing now, and I think a recommendation from us is we need our district attorney looking into this. And I would hope I could get some support on that part of it, because based on what this teacher just told us, I think today is the first time we actually have a person that has provided information where she and residents have been defrauded. And so I would hope the media is listening, and so that letter of saying only 7 residents at 47, that lady there just gave you the information as a best witness that was false information based on what she said today.
Right.
Well, I guess I'm concerned. Is our assumption that the majority of the families have relocated permanently, and
we don't know.
So okay. So I guess moving forward, I would like us to come up with some type of proactive way of finding that information out as an institution, if that's not too much to ask.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Unfortunately, this is a part of the conversation that I, in an official capacity, really have no say-so in this. But I will say this because you come here for solutions and you want to be proactive in fixing this problem. I've been in at least 2 meetings where it was stated that these residents are not going to go to the Salvation Army. They are prideful. They didn't create this situation. They don't like being called homeless. And so the question in those meetings, I think this was the last one was the Homeless Coalition meeting I attended, where we met at the school board meeting. Is that where they're? And they discussed this about how you can reach these residents to make sure they're getting the resources, to make sure they're getting the information. Because part of it is that point of entry is that they do have to be classified as homeless. And that is not true in the residents' perspective, that they didn't do anything to become homeless. So therefore, why should I be classified homeless to get this assistance? So that's one barrier right there. The second barrier is the stigmatism of saying I need to go live at the shelter to receive this assistance. That's the real conversation that I think you want to have, and we are being politically correct, because I'm going to stay in my lane.
So am I correct?
But I want to get you where you trying to get to.
So is that true, that in order to access the services fully, I need to spend the night at the shelter?
No.
Okay.
What?
It is not true.
So
No,
for
you don't
the
need to spend the night. Well,
No, you have to. Currently, from what I understand now, there is an official letter out, correct?
correct.
That's all they needed.
Okay.
Okay, so, but if they don't, if they don't qualify to get rapid rehousing or any of those housing assistance programs, there are other financial means.
That's
to
not the only
assist
one
those.
that you have in your
Correct.
ability.
Correct. They
Okay.
don't have to come into the Salvation Army and stay there just to receive the services.
But that's where you need to do the paperwork.
That's where the paperwork
To
needs to
order
be
to
done.
access the
That's
full
all it
services
involves.
of Macon-Bibb County government.
no.
Not even
No,
Macon-Bibb
no.
County government, but the community, philanthropic community and the Salvation Army. This is our intake process. That's where you need to go. Well, that is true. Yeah, that's the coordinated entry. In order to access any of the service provided by any quasi-governmental agency, is through you. That is our process. That's how it goes. And right now, for whatever reason, we only have 5 folks, so that's where we need to work at
Right, because the weekend that this happened, we set up emergency shelters at Memorial Gym. No one was there. We had food and everything. So I mean, you're dealing with a unique situation.
Right,
That
right.
it goes back to this is not a natural disaster. It's a private matter between and this is the first time I've actually heard of fraud, because the tenants were being blamed for not paying rent as to why some of the conditions were how they were. So I'm glad to know that that has been at least talked about. But it goes back to this point of entry and getting the tenants to, I don't want to say understand, because they do understand, but getting them to a point of where they can come in they are at different levels in this process. Some have the financial means to live with other family members, which hampers their qualifications as far as what they need. Some are living in the hotels, which hamper their transportation to getting where they're going. So you're dealing with a very unique situation.
And that's why I use the word census that I'm kind of concerned about. I would like, at least even if their situation is, I'm fine, I don't need no help, I'm fine, I've already found a house, whatever, leave me alone. I want that on a registry of some sort that we know. And I think of that, so I want to paint the perspective of, a lot of us have kids, some of us have college age kids, some of them went out of state, right? If my college age kid called from Wisconsin and said that my apartment flooded and the power was out and we've been told we need to relocate, I can't get to Wisconsin in one day. I would like to know that someone in that community said more than go to the Salvation Army. Like, the protocols are there that even if I can't get to my child, that there's some responsible, whether it be the school, the mayor's office, or something that has got a registry. If he's sleeping with a child, sleeping in somebody else's couch, that at least at some point in the week or the month, that some responsible entity is going to call to make sure that he's not on the street and things have gotten weird.
We don't have a list of who the people were in that complex to begin with. Okay, we don't know who they are.
Okay, so that's our first. That's one of our first problems. That okay.
Secondly, a lot were placed into a hotel. All right.
Right.
And they were not reaching out for assistance. So with that being said, that's the reason you're into 2 weeks now, because they're just now finding that they are going to need the assistance.
Right.
Which is what we're here for. But we were there in the beginning. All they had to do was reach. So the whole city is behind this. Mm-hmm. Every agency I know of. And it's not that we don't want to help. We just have to have them reach out to us because we don't know who they are.
Right. Okay. And that makes sense. And I think that, and as a community, we're at a place where we're transitioning collectively, have to get on the mindset that this is no longer a temporary situation and I'm going to move back in today or tomorrow.
Right.
Versus that,
And not to add more to it, if what y'all say is true, on the 20th, we're going to be in the same situation with the
and that's why I say that we need to start thinking about the protocols on how we want to treat it going forward, because we have the very real possibility that this may multiply.
Right.
Mr. Chair, so that we don't leave here with nothing done, nothing accomplished other than, a few services. Mr. Chair, so that we don't leave here with nothing accomplished. All the discussion has been wonderful. We've all learned a lot. We know that there are all these agencies that are doing fine work. They're just doing great stuff. But right here, you have 5 people when you've got a whole lot more people that are impacted by this that need to know what's out there, and they have not made contact with you. They have not made contact with other entities except for 1 or 2 here and there. We have got to come up with a way that folks can be contacted, and so that they can go through sort of a clearinghouse and maintain their dignity, and also get any needs met that they might have. And I'm just saying that I suggested the regional commission because they are a planning and development agency that we pay as a city, we pay dues into. They can provide a template or a pattern for engagement of all of those folks, and I think we ought to utilize their services. We've got a representative here who is used to doing that kind of stuff. He's not going to take over anybody's stuff that they're doing, if anybody's concerned about that. But there needs to be some coordination, because it's obvious that the folks that are out of Crystal Lake who are victims have not had their needs met. And so that was why I was suggesting that everybody maintains and keeps doing what they're doing in providing services, and keep your funding and all of your everything else. But there needs to be some coordination if we're going to impact those folks, because they have not, for whatever reason, taken advantage of what's out there. They don't know, first of all. And everybody's tried. NAACP has done things, community, everybody, making housing. But there needs to be an entity like that that can plan for the delivery of services, from the standpoint of getting the information. And then, can you just say one or two things about how you go about doing this? And this is a wonderful agency, and this will be a learning experience for a lot of folks who might not know what the Regional Commission actually does. Most of you do, but.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brett Lavender is here today, and help me out.
Julie Hall.
And Miss Julie Hall, thank you. You guys have been here patiently.
Yeah.
Thank you for attending today, and if you can offer us any assistance or guidance, we would much appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. As you said, Commissioner, I'm Brent Lanford. I'm Deputy Director of the Middle Georgia Regional Commission, and with me is Julie Hall. She's our Director of the Area Agency on Aging. So just really quickly, the Regional Commission is a regional planning and development agency, as Commissioner Lucas stated. We serve 11 counties and 20 cities within the Middle Georgia area. Our anchor is here in Macon-Bibb, and yes, our members, which are all the local governments that we serve, pay dues for our services. We also have state and federal contracts that we undertake to provide various planning and development related services as well. We provide a variety of functions in different areas, ranging from economic development assistance, workforce, aging services, information technology, geographic information systems, computer mapping, et cetera. One of the things that Julie and I have been thinking about since this crisis has started is a way that the Regional Commission can serve as a forum or a coordinating entity. We do that for the local governments that we serve. The process that we are engaged, that we go through, the administrative process, is the technical assistance request process. Many of you are aware of that, and certainly as Dr. Moffitt as well with the mayor's office. Basically that entails a request of us, because we work for the entirety of Middle Georgia, to provide services under our dues agreement. We have a governing body called a council that many of the commissioners have served on in many times in the past and presently, whereby the council receives the request, actually requests from all of our regional member local governments, and then those requests are reviewed and approved, and then we are engaged in work. Now, in situations like this where there is an emergency situation, we would receive a request and really start working towards a solution while waiting for the administrative process to be completed after afterwards. We could even engage our executive committee on our council to authorize immediate work. That being said, one of the things that Julie was thinking about, and I think it's a great solution, is if this has not happened yet, maybe we could coordinate a service provider fair for all of the impacted residences. One of the things we could do under the Middle Georgia Regional Commission name and authority is to host a services fair that would include all of the service agencies that we've included here. One of the things we could do in a PR sense is to promote that meeting. We would have to probably engage a facility a little larger than the Regional Commission office, but I think we could easily do that. At that
Can we
point,
host a service providers fair at your bulk melting center, sir? Yeah. Perfect.
Good, good.
that'd be
How about Saturday morning?
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, sir.
So I might turn over some specifics to Julie in just a second, because she is certainly our knowledge expert in service provision in this kind of arena. But I would say that what that would also enable us to do is to get a list of the residents that, if they come to our service fair, not only can we sort of triage them in a centralized kind of manner, but we can point them to resources, whether it be Red Cross or Housing Authority, any and all, because we all do provide different services. We specifically provide services for the aging and disabled, and we have an intake gateway system that we process several thousand calls a month just with about four folks. So all of us have, I'm speaking on behalf of all the service providers, specific federal and sometimes state guidelines. And it can be confusing because it's hard to centralize all of those together and do something at a local level. But I think we can probably arrange that if a committee is willing to engage us to do that.
Yes. Yes. Let's. I know you say we have a process, but I think we would want to engage. We definitely want to engage with you in moving post haste to get that done. Whatever paperwork you need, we'll work on post haste. But if we verbally could agree to work together.
Yes, sir. One of the things I just wanted to make note of, our executive director is Laura Mathis. I know each of you know her very well. I'm sitting in for her. She regrets not being able to make the meeting today, but she's out of town, and we will need to, of course, brief her on the discussion right now, and maybe have a point of contact. Chairman, if we could use you, we'd be willing to do that, but that would be an immediate point of procedure for us.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, whatever we need to do to keep it moving forward, we're game to do. Thank you. Is that? And I saw a lot of nods from most of the people in the room. This sounds good. Great.
County manager, is that gonna work for you?
You've had a question for a while. Yes, ma'am.
For each individual. It would be an individualized plan for each person, because everybody's different. And so that takes away, if they didn't want to go to, she said a lot of people didn't go to the Salvation Army.
And that's the purpose of the assessment process. Everybody, you're going to be honest on your assessment, and everybody's situation ain't going to be the same. So it's not a cookie cutter. Everybody would receive the same amount. It's based upon, I think I'm saying this, it's based upon needs and necessity. Yes, ma'am.
So,
someone to stay, or would they have to pay $7? Would you have to pay $7 after so long
She wants to
There is
answer.
no charge to stay in the Salvation
Excuse me?
Army. There is no charge.
Okay, for the people that put.
No charge for anyone to stay in the Salvation
After
Army.
so many days?
No, ma'am. No charge.
Okay.
All right. I see a few hands, Ms. Westbrook from the NAACP. And yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I know that, we've gotten a lot of phone calls from different, tenants at, Crystal Lake. One of the issues that, I think you mentioned that about people that have paid their rent for the month of February. The attorney, we reached out to the attorneys, he has called us back.
No, I was going to.
He asked me to get a list of people who, did pay their rent. And, he's gonna expedite the process of getting these people their money back and pay their rent.
Okay.
Very
Wonderful.
also, people called us about moving, and I know that they're trying to get somebody to just be the point person. But some people are ready to move, they found a place, to move their furnitures. We partner with a moving company and we've agreed to help those people get moved, and, they're trying to move now. And so we're gonna go ahead on with that process to get those people moved out of there, that are ready to move and have a place for, to put their storages. And then we have a list of people that are with different situations, and we have someone that's actually interviewing these people one by one to find out what their needs are, whether they paid their rent, so we'll know that, whether or not what type of services they need. And so we're also working on trying to find that's one of the things that we're also working on, trying to find housing for, I work at the Department of Family and Children Services, so this is something that I'm familiar with, but we still wanna do what you all are trying to do too in this process. But we're dealing with issues that are right now. And, so we have a list of people that are disabled and that are elderly that, don't have anywhere to stay right now. So, we're working on trying to work with the housing authority, try to get those people placed that are disabled and that are elderly. We got a list of those people.
So from the NAACP as well as the Community Coalition, all of your list and people, we need to start coordinating through, and the Regional Commission or Ms. Naomi is going to be reaching out from the Salvation Army. One master list with every situation, every question that's been asked. So, and I know that the Community Coalition has been providing rooms for up to 23 families. I know that the NAACP has fed everybody on occasion and is also, like I say, doing also processing, intaking, coordinating. So I know for some of the more in need families that there's already information on and services provided, but we need to find a way to make sure all of that's in one. I think somebody used the word clearinghouse for starters. So, and that gives me a little bit more confidence knowing that the community outside of us as quasi-government has been providing some of this temporary shelter and other situations. Even though we may not know it, it's going to give us a little bit of rest to learn that some of these folks, as we make the calls and to write down the names, that they hadn't been on the street, that they've been in hotels that have been provided by churches and the rest of that. But all of it needs to be in one central location for intake and clearing purposes.
Virgil.
And we will do that.
Okay.
We do that.
Okay.
But we are providing housing for some people this week too.
Wonderful. Yes, sir.
Do you feel that y'all can do this when you talk to Laura, and it can be put in operation ASAP?
I see 'em.
Because we're on a short leash to try to get this stuff done. And do you have the manpower and woman power that can do what needs to be done?
Those are excellent questions, Commissioner. We will need to convene with Laura and some of our leadership.
And you'll follow back up with the commissioner?
Yes, that's why I asked if we could
Yes.
have a follow-up with you after we.
Because he can follow back up with us to see what we need to do, because it's very important that we find out where our families are. Now, these are our families and our children. We know where our school children are, but what are they going back into?
Mr. Drake.
Right. I just want to clarify that I'll be happy to work with the Middle Georgia Regional Commission and getting the resolution down this Tuesday if they can have a service agreement ready. But we'll coordinate with you as quickly as possible so we can get that before the commission. And also, I just wanted to go back and apologize to Commissioner Tillman. Earlier, he indicated that I was not responsive enough regarding this matter, and certainly I always want to be responsible to the commissioners. And I want to apologize to him and say that I will certainly try to do better to be responsible. And he did want to let him know that.
Yes, sir.
You got the guy in the back.
No, Macon Housing Authority, Mike.
Yes. Thank you.
Mike, Mr. Austin, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. I applaud you guys for doing this. This is great.
Thank you, Judge.
This is exciting.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Laura.
It's challenging. Thank you.
Julie.
Hey, good to see you. Let me just kind of make a few points, make people aware of some real opportunities that we can bring to the table. For over a decade, we've had what we call a homeless preference, which is a locally adopted preference in both Section 8 and public housing. We've had that in place for over a decade, and we've worked very close with about 5 agencies here in town. We have memorandums of understanding with all of those agencies, and from year to year, we probably house about 80 people through that particular process. And so here in this particular situation, again, that mechanism and that apparatus is in force. And the agencies are EOC, Salvation Army, Rescue Mission, and 2 that are kind of unique. One is Disability Connections, and that speaks to Ms. Westbrook's concerns. We have a MOU with Mike Leverett over at Disability Connections. We've worked with him for over a decade, and we often get referrals, and that is terrific. And so, of course, there's some people in this pool who need that, and we're working with Ms. Westbrook on that, and we'll, of course, get with Mike Leverett. And then the last one, which is relatively new, is Mission United. And we just adopted that, 6 months ago, and that helps veterans who are homeless. And so I don't know if there's anybody at Crystal Lake that's a veteran, but if there are, they can use that particular mechanism, and that'd be a great opportunity. And as was mentioned earlier by the city manager, we have 6 customers who are at Crystal Lake, none of which live in the high rise or the mid rise. And Commissioner, thanks for your comment regarding federal money. When it comes to vouchers, the voucher money follows the unit, and so we're charged with making sure that particular unit is in what they call HQS standards. And so we have inspectors out there, and we did get word from a couple of our customers yesterday that the Water Authority has informed them that it could be possibly turned off again. So I immediately sent a letter yesterday to those folks and to the ownership. We're going to get our people in within the next couple of days, give them a brand new voucher, help them. They've got to. It's a process because they have to look for a new unit, and then they've got to have it inspected and so on and so forth. But we'll help them through that. That's what we do. And then I sent a letter to the owner and said, look, until you guys can get your act together, we're not going to refer anybody over to that property. And if things dramatically change, please call us, and we'll dispatch our inspectors, and we'll see. But until then, we're just not willing to do that. And so this doesn't, what we can offer doesn't solve everything, but I think it's a tool in the toolbox. And, we've got a great community here that is trying to get together, and I just applaud everybody here today. This is a real unique opportunity. It's a real unique situation, and I just applaud everybody for coming together.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Have you contacted the Realtors Association and talked to them? I mean, they have all the homes and everything.
I have not, but that's a very good suggestion. There's 2, when it comes to Section 8, there's 2 types. One that is what we call project-based, which means the money goes to the actual property, and that's, that's a contract between HUD and the owner. And then there's the voucher, which just follows to each unit. And this is not a property-based deal, but the Realtors Association, I will make a phone call to them today. Absolutely. And from time to time we come across owners like this, and they hide behind LLCs is what they do, and that makes it very difficult. But we stand ready to do anything and everything we can, and we appreciate you. And thanks for having us.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
for inviting
Thank
us.
you, sir.
Okay.
Amazing. I want to wrap up. I see a few hands, and I'll open up for that at the very end. But I had one more question for Ms. Jackson. So we've talked about the emergency. I lost the name of it. ESG.
Grant?
So that Emergency Solutions
Emergency
Grant.
Solutions Grant, yes, sir.
And currently, it is funded at a certain level, and you anticipated it was budgeted and allocated. So you're reallocating or activating some. Explain to me how that works. Do we have enough, and roughly how much of an estimate do you think a program like this is going to cost, if you can?
That's hard to say. We actually had anticipated, just looking at the services that have been actually provided this year with Macon-Bibb EOC, and we're in the process of actually reappropriating additional funds to the rapid rehousing piece. So that's why I said that's already in the works as far as that's concerned, just looking at the overall before Crystal Lake even happened, what we were doing as far as our community is concerned.
There was already a rapid rehousing issue?
We actually, again, this is a part of our budgeting process, and we have contracts that are currently in place now that we have been working with agencies to provide homeless prevention services as far as our community is concerned, as well as rapid rehousing.
And so you're saying prior to Crystal Lake, that was already a budgetary need that we were trying to address, and now with Crystal Lake.
As far as our community is concerned. So what we are looking at is that there's more individuals that are needing services as far as being rehoused, and that we have a resolution for approximately, I think it's 22,000 that we are looking at as far as providing to additional funds on the rapid rehousing side.
Okay, so I just need to amend that to make it, we do some formula stuff before Tuesday. Okay.
Now, this is an actual grant that we have a direct allocation that's coming from the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Okay.
And then there may also be additional funds as far as other agencies that may be doing other things, but this is the direct allocation that we get each year.
Okay.
Yes, in our application process. And so they submitted an application and have been providing that service for the last 2 years as far as our community is concerned.
Okay. Yes. Commissioner Bibbins. Oh, Commissioner Bibbins. Yes, sir. Please come up. We have seats.
I just want to ask that.
We have seats and microphones.
All those agencies that are here, since we're looking at a way to coordinate this, can they give a name and phone number to the clerk so that we can get regional commission to coordinate it, then we can provide that information so that we can start.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I had a question for you, Mr. Austin, to that same extent. The services that you were speaking on, housing, homelessness prevention, are they already a part of the coordinated effort, or so they wouldn't need to come directly to you?
Coalition basically goes through those 5 agencies, and then those 5 agencies will refer people to us who qualify and so on. So
Okay.
And that's been established.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Bibbins, will you be able to talk to the water authority to find out how we can hold up them cutting them off so that these people can get their stuff in and out over at the Crystal?
I called them yesterday, and we have a meeting today, and I'll ask further questions, but I did find out, it's like 30 days, and then we'll try to keep working with that.
Could you let the commissioner know something about what's going to go on?
Well, in the next 30 days, it'll be fine. We need to just try to see if something can be worked out by.
That's what I'm talking about right away. Yeah.
Right now, they're gonna leave it on.
They are going to leave it on
30 days.
for 30 days. Great. Thank you, sir. You do a good job.
Thank you. So closing out, we have questions. I'll start. Yes, ma'am.
This is just a question on behalf of some residents I spoke with. They have tried looking around and sending out applications, and they're not hearing back. The new apartments aren't hearing back from Crystal Lake, because you have to send in references of past leases, and they're not responding. So what do tenants do in that circumstance?
Who's not responding?
The residents I spoke with that are already starting the application processes to new apartments, and new apartment places are, doing background checks, and
Right.
they're just not hearing back from Crystal Lake.
My advice to landlords is, to me, this doesn't count.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if I've been quote unquote evicted from Crystal Lake, the housing authority doesn't consider that an eviction. They were asked to leave, so I would just recommend and admonish other
in any way.
Counting this
Right.
as something negative on this person's rental history. This is
That's
just a
what we've
unique
been
situation.
working on too. Our contacts have agreed to not
Yeah, we called him.
pay any attention to what's happening to Crystal Lake. They're just moving forward now. Like,
Yep, that's right.
yeah.
That's how we're, if we have people come through the homeless preference, then we're not gonna look at that because this just doesn't count as far as I'm concerned.
And that's some of the problems that we're running into. Tenants are saying that they're not able to get anything. They're trying to, they've actually found another place, but the Crystal Lake won't give them anything showing that they were in good standing for
Right.
them to, so maybe we're gonna try to.
Crystal Lake is completely absentee. If you could, I wouldn't even put him on my application. I don't. Yes.
Places that I've gone, they're not even considering Crystal Lake. They don't, they know about Crystal Lake.
Right.
And that would not be counted against anybody that's trying to get.
Right.
So
If-
I don't know what they with, but that would not, I know that for a fact.
Person was probably moving too fast.
Considered on your application.
Yes. Next question. Okay, we get it. Mr. Frazier.
Virgil, I just want to say, I have two questions. One is, I applaud you and Al Tillman and all of you all as well that's here trying to help this situation. And I just want to know, as an average citizen of Macon, what can we do to try to help situations like these at Crystal Lake and the things that happen to you all? It breaks my heart. I had to leave out of here because it brought tears to my eyes and know that this can be done in our community. And the other question is, I want to know what can be done where these individuals that's able to buy properties and put this many people up and treat them this way, and not only make our citizens look bad and poor, and I understand them not wanting to look like that, but also make our government look bad. We got to do something about this because this law is against this. And the thing about it is, it seemed like to me that this is a type of robbery, because if every individual that living out there in them apartments got their agreements to where they pay their rent and got, stuff that show that they pay their stuff like this later, then that's just like you taking their money, their livelihood and all that. That's robbery. And we have laws against robbery in every city. Most people that rob something in any city is locked up, or in jail, or on their way to jail. Why are these people still free that do this to individuals? Why are they still free not to answer to what they're doing to people in our community? I know that you all are doing the right thing with these people are concerned, but we need to reach deeper into these people and find out where they are, where they're hiding, and make them accountable, like you said, for this. This is not anybody's fault, so we're not here pointing fingers or faulting people. We're trying to find ways to rectify this and then find ways to make sure that it never happens again. And I appreciate you all for doing this and having this forum to try to figure that out. And when you get it figured out, I will back you totally and completely. Thank you all.
Great.
Mr. Watson, one more
Yeah.
thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one more.
Yes, ma'am.
There were two occasions where I went to pay, when I went to pay my rent in the office. Well, I told you about so many different 19 property managers.
Mm-hmm.
One of them said to me, "Miss Kitchen, you were so tired. Won't you just give me your money order and I'll fill it out for you and I'll give you a copy." So I told him, I said, "Now, do I look that stupid to you? I taught school for 30 years, but I'm not crazy. I'm not gonna let you fill it out. I can fill out my own." They wanted you to give them a blank money order so they can fill out the top part. They could have put anybody's name up there.
Oh, wow. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know how many people they did that, but they offered that to me. I didn't buy it.
I think your perspective does shed a lot of light on some questions a lot of folks been asking.
People out there asking me because they know I was taught. They need personal items like ladies need their deodorants and stuff, and there's a lot of things that they don't have.
Yeah, and that's to Mr. Frazier's question. For anyone that's trying to provide assistance or has toiletries, from the community coalition to several churches in the area to the NAACP are all, and I think from all your traditional churches, from St. Luke to New Pilgrim to New Pleasant Grove, are all doing those type of collection and donation drop-off type things. And I hate that I need to name names because it's important for folks to know where. But
Some of the pastors were asking me, I told them that I had to give some of the pastors had given donations. They said nobody
So for, and Tally just left for the bulk of the money collected by what they call the Community Coalition, has been going to temporary housing. There were 23 families initially. I believe it was 16 today. That the hotel rooms that are being paid for. That's where the bulk of that money is going if you're donating to the Community Coalition. If you're donating to the Salvation Army or the NAACP, it's going to those organizations. They're doing the same thing. You just heard from the region. You just heard from for those 5 families that they have helped out. Is what's been happening. I think some of the churches have been paying directly to the hotels. I know on instances of St. Luke has just been, paying the hotels directly for about 8 families that they took care of. I'm not sure for how many days, but I think, yes, ma'am.
I do want to also say that, I know that I wasn't here, but they mentioned about maybe some criminal charges, but I just want, the attorneys are supposed to come down and talk to these tenants on next Thursday. We're setting up a location for that also, as far as civil issues.
Okay, great. Any other information or organizations that have not spoken that we need to hear from? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Shavonda Hill with Congressman Sanford Bishop's office. Earlier, he alluded that no federal agency was here. I was here from the beginning.
The congressman been here the whole time?
We've been here the whole time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Include that we are here and that we are being proactive, and I've been in different meetings, and we are here in the community to help where we can.
So as you heard earlier, we're trying to activate a little bit of money. We need more. But thank you. Good seeing you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. So also, as Commissioner Bivens pointed out, everyone who's here, if you could please, if you hadn't signed in, please provide a business card or some form of contact so we can follow up for the coordinated entry. If no one else has any closing remarks, we'll close. Thank you for your time. I think we all understand where we're going from here on trying to better coordinate our coordinated entry and getting a bit proactive and getting registered and updates from our tenants, from our residents. So thank you for your time. Hey, man, appreciate you. Sign in right here.